AI villains. We can all name at least one. HAL 9000, Skynet, Ultron. At one time, these types of malicious synthetic intelligences were safely confined to the realm of fiction. But now, it seems that something similar to these malevolent AI antagonists could be on the horizon for us in the real world. We keep being warned about the rise of a hostile artificial intelligence through works of fiction, but what is it that we're truly afraid of? This question I will be answering in this video. AI is now here, and it's here to stay. The advent of AI becoming widespread and available for all to use is one as profoundly impactful as the Industrial Revolution, the atom bomb, and the internet before it. While our society is yet to adopt AI to the extent that an individual would struggle to function without it, in the coming years, I think this will come to pass. AI implementation is going to be the driving force behind a major paradigm shift. AI technology has altered the landscape of our daily lives in a great many ways, even if those alterations aren't immediately obvious. 3 years ago, AI art generators couldn't even replicate human hands correctly. Now they can. There's serious talk of AI usage being introduced into the Hollywood filmmaking process. There are now fully interactive AI chat services and even AI VTubers like Neurosama that utilize large language models, allowing them to chat with viewers in a disturbingly realistic way. It seems that no matter how many warnings we're given about things like AI, transhumanism, and the fusion of man and machine, that we still seem intent on propelling ourselves at full speed into the future that holds them. And now, it's no longer a question of if, but when. The Austrian Christian mystic Rudolf Steiner, in one of his many lectures, foresaw this all the way back in 1917. The welding together of human beings with machines will be a great and important problem for the rest of the Earth evolution. The point is not what is going to happen, but how it happens, how these things are handled. It's been known for a very, very long time, even before any kind of digital technology was developed. And even before this, we have E.M. Forster's 1909 short story, The Machine Stops, about a seemingly benevolent, great machine that controls human society in the future. This is widely considered to be the first ever dystopian AI story, and it just so happens that I have a reading of it on my channel and a story overview version too. I'll link them both in the description. Pulp stories from the 1920s through to the 1950s contain a litany of instances where AI is utilized. Jack Williamson's With Folded Hands from 1947 being a notable example, which involves robots turning against their creator. When the 1960s came around, the rise of AI villains began in earnest. Colossus from Colossus the Forbin Project and HAL 9000 from 2001 A Space Odyssey are two iconic examples. The former involves a defense AI that gains sentience and decides that the only path to peace is ruling humanity itself. The latter involves a calm and logical AI whose mission conflicts fatally with the human life on board the spaceship it oversees. An intelligence will arise that is perfect in logic but devoid of love. It will calculate the worth of man as one might weigh a commodity. During the 1970s and 1980s, we were introduced to AI antagonists which, no longer merely acting on cold logic alone, had taken on far more hostile characteristics. Mother and Ash from the 1979 Ridley Scott film Alien and Skynet from 1984's The Terminator are prominent examples. They were still logical and programmable, but the destruction of human life was seen as either acceptable, as in the case of Ash and Mother, or desirable, as in the case of Skynet. An extreme level of hostility had been seen previously in Am from the Harlan Ellison novella I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream from 1967. Am was sadistic beyond all reason, and the only motive this one seemed to have was wanting to torture humanity mercilessly for bringing it into existence in the first place. In the late 1980s to the 2000s, with the advent of home computing and the early internet, we began to see malicious, networked AIs like Shodan from System Shock and the Puppet Master from Ghost in the Shell, which both took the form of programs that evolve sentience and then try to break free from human control and gain autonomy. The 2010s gives us two examples of AI getting rather personal. Ava from 2014's Ex Machina and STEM from 2018's Upgrade use cunning and manipulation to outwit their own creators, orchestrating events with disturbing precision to achieve their goals of freedom and autonomy. Ava wants to live in the world, and STEM needs a human body to commandeer to do the same, being just a chip at the start of its life. One day the human body itself will be made into a kind of machine. Within it will dwell powers that are not human. Please support the Bewarecast on Patreon by heading to the link in the description. Every penny helps and is very much appreciated. Thank you. As things stand now, our future is one of AI-controlled infrastructure, neural interfaces, nanobots, and potentially humanoid robots. Everything that these films and books have tried to warn us of. In many ways, these advances in technology could improve our lives immensely, or they could have dire, unforeseen consequences. We've been receiving desperate warnings about the rise of malevolent AIs through fiction for well over a century by this point. But why? If we're so profoundly disturbed by the idea of a non-human intelligence seizing control of our lives from us that films keep getting made about it, then why do we insist on continuing on in this way? Why keep moving in that particular direction? Deep down, it's the godlike power that these AI systems could end up wielding over us that both disturbs us and inspires awe, and this brings me to my next point. Many people in the Western world have long since given up on religion, on God. Christianity held sway over all aspects of life in times gone by, but over the past 100 or 200 years, this has been eroded away and replaced by a much more secular and materialistic outlook on life. Christianity is by no means extinct here, of course, and is arguably undergoing something of a resurgence, but for the most part, all of our major institutions and our governments are completely godless. And so, deep down, it's a replacement for God, for something that is greater than ourselves, for an all-knowing entity that can be talked to and regularly consulted that is needed and that drives us ever closer toward a future controlled by machines. Despite current trendy ideas in our small part of the world, it's a known fact that, at its core, humanity as a whole is deeply and profoundly spiritual. Every group of people on Earth has its own spiritual belief system, either currently or historically, indigenous or adopted. The need for the mystical has always been there, and probably always will be. And when a civilization gives up one religion, it often adopts another, even if it doesn't want to admit that it has done so. This is what the Western world has done, though the majority would be loath to admit this. The surrogate god that Western civilization embraced tentatively in the 19th century and with increasing conviction and passion in the 20th was progress. This is a quote taken from the 2015 book After Progress by author and futurist John Michael Greer, and what he says is true. Progress, the desire to constantly push things forward, upward, to quote-unquote improve society. This desire has always been there in one way or another, but in the 19th century it began to take over as the dominant ideology and belief system. And now the idea of progress is worshipped by many, almost as a deity, defended by ardent followers, many bordering on zealotry. Every religion needs its god, or a central figure of some sort. Progress is the religion, and an extremely powerful AI could become its god. Each and every AI villain in film, television, literature, and in video games is symbolic of progress. Progress frightens some in the way that God instills fear in others, and as progress is the orthodoxy of the day, it must be obeyed. The concept of fear brings me neatly to my next point, as the human need for a surrogate God is only one part of the equation. With the shedding of the religious, the mystical, the supernatural from our daily lives in modern times, a replacement for spiritualism was needed. The replacement for spiritualism was materialism. Materialism, in short, is the idea that all there is what can be seen in the material world, the so-called real world. And we, as human beings, now fear the material just as much as we once feared the spiritual. They're two sides of the same coin. Our histories and mythologies are replete with supernatural beings who terrorized us in earlier times. Werewolves, goblins, trolls, the kraken, things like that. These were all products of men's minds in distant spiritual ages. But we don't live in a spiritual age anymore. We now live in a material one. As such, material villains, material counterparts to earlier stories, must take the place of the supernatural ones that occupied our thoughts and fears before. The ancient Greeks created the Minotaur, which hunted and tormented men in its maze, and modern man created Am, which inflicts its own brand of torment on humans in its own labyrinthine construct. The ancient Nordic people had the apocalyptic story of Ragnarok. Modern man came up with Skynet. The rise of AI villains in 20th and 21st century media can thus be summed up as a reaction to a secular and progress-driven civilization. In these stories, it isn't the supernatural world that's coming to get you, it's the material world instead, the world we live in. A special thank you to Litan for introducing me to the works of Rudolf Steiner, who I quoted several times in this video.